Hello, welcome to Reframing Mindset Podcast. We are clear-minded of the thoughts that are preventing clarity, practice my speech, among other things. Episodes range from informative knowledge to funny stories about my experiences, and in the future, maybe include interviews. So subscribe and enjoy. Episodes drop every other day. Okay, so welcome back to Reframe Myself podcast. My name is Connor Brooks. I know this episode is going to topic is going to talk about minor pleasures, as on this journey out of poverty. You have to separate your needs from your wants. And if you're on this journey out of poverty, you can't really be buying wants when you really need needs because you're going to basically die before you reach out of poverty. Yeah. Yeah. So if you have listened to the podcast from like early like this year, you'd have see me, doing a lot of other goals and stuff regarding to where I'm at now and, and stuff. And those were to basically deal with my needs, because I never really have the privilege to do wants. I was doing wants, but those were planned out and such like that. But it wasn't something that I could just do all the time. That I was privileged to do all the time and such like that. And I basically the opportunity presented itself and I said, okay, let me just take the risk and such like that. So but now I'm at the point where I can start to introduce those minor pleasures, those minor pleasures. So like for example, maybe buying an ice cream. So buying an ice cream now, that would kinda affect my weight journey. So if I buy ice cream now and I did basically stop exercising, or basically start eat a lot of ice cream, the weight will go up and I'll go back to be unfit again. And so you see on your goal so when you set a goal now, you're saying, okay, you need to do this. But the thing that you need to do is basically out of your comfort zone. But there's comfort thing that you like to do. So the thing is now if you want to achieve the goal, you have to basically say, okay, you have to basically say, okay, you have to stick to the needs. And then when the goal is accomplished now, then you can start to include the wants. But the wants will bring you back to where you were before the goal was. So you have to say, okay, is that the risk that I wanted to take or not? And such like that. So that's basically where I'm getting towards now, where basically, I'm introducing the minor pleasures that I want. And now what happened is now when I introduce minor pleasures, I know to basically counteract them. So this phase now will basically be me trying to introduce the minor pleasures while trying to do the things to make sure that I don't overdo it. So like for example, in one of my previous episodes, quality over quantity, where I mentioned that you basically just need quality things in the right quantity. That's the thing we mentioned the minor pleasures, where I introduce those minor pleasures and I get the quality things that I used to love, like for example ice cream or such like that, desserts, but I enjoy them in the right quantity, and so it doesn't really get out of hand. I become obese and all those stuff. So that's the thing. And do some other stuff, things like going back to church. And regardless, I kind of like the church settings. This, sing. Back in the days, back when I was really young, it was because when I went to the church, all the people around me, I never really knew them. So it was like me going. It was just like when I went to school, I never really knew anybody else like my family. So basically, I was basically a stranger. But now when I'm going to the church now, I'm going to enjoy the environment, the church environment, the singing, the dancing, all those stuff. Isn't it that thing? So, but I'm doing that now. I'm not really going for the people. I'm going for the experience. That's I'm not a minor pleasure. You know, yeah. I can introduce myself to again. Oh God. Yeah. So basically, that's the phase that I'm in now, where I'm basically. But the thing about it again, like as mentioned in one of my previous episodes, there are minor problems, home problems that are coming up. Like for example, the thing that I have now is not the best, so I don't really have the best fridge in the sense. The fridge was pretty. Oh, so go back to the quality versus quantity thing. The fringe was pretty good. Fringe was doing his job, was doing well. But what happened was, if you remember when I said I started doing farming and such like that, the land, we reap a lot of corns. So much corn that it could have hold in the fridge. But I tried to force it in anyway. And because I did that, the fridge kind of stopped working now. It's kind of working, kind of not working. So now when I'm going to introduce the thing like, for example, the ice cream, that's a risk, you know. So, so this is one of those the phase where I'm starting to experiment now. I start to see, okay, what can I introduce and what are the things, because as I said, if you remember from yeah, this part of the episode, I already talking to the OG fans. The OG fans that really listen to the episode and such like that and follow the journey. So you kind of understand. So you don't know that when I said buying versus own a house, the first year is just you reacting, reacting to all the problems. So right now, I said I'm a first year homeowner, so I'm just reacting and trying to introduce all the things that I love. So but so it kind of is going to take some time because the thing about it now, it's on my responsibility. When I was younger, yeah, I had no care in the world. I have my family and such like that. But becoming an adult now, you have these responsibility. When it falls down, it falls on you. So you have to really, really think about the things like that. What you think, oh, it would be, it's not really a thought or something like that. When it's your money and your things, you have to really start to think about that. So that's the idea I'm trying to get, that the transition. Yes, you started to see the podcast transition of, from younger to, yeah. So that's how it's going now. So that's basically it for this episode. Yeah, when you're on this journey, you're going to have to really sacrifice your wants to really focus on your needs, but eventually you reach a point where you can start introducing back your wants, but you have to really introduce them smartly, or you really revert back to where you were, or worse, or worse. So you can't really just come in as reintroduce it. You have to really think about it and stuff like that, because the thing is, there's a reason why you left your want to really say, okay, you're going on this journey with your needs, because where you were at with your wants was some place that you didn't like, so you don't really want to go back to that place. So that's the thing now. So that's basically it for this episode. Thank you for listening. I look forward for the next episode. Yeah.
Well, this is the end of the episode. Thanks for watching and look forward for the next episode. To support this podcast, go to anchor.fm/cssb/support or become a sponsor for this episode. If you have a product that you want to have more exposure, DM me on the Instagram page, Reframing Mindset Podcast, or on Twitter at ReframingP. Either way would help. Thank you regardless for listening, and here's a preview for the next episode.
Yes. Can't really tell if you might hear it or not, but it's just in case you hear it. It's a night recording again. So if you hear crickets in the background. I know. Just don't mind. Yeah. But I know this episode is going to talk about counting your blessings, counting your blessings because now as, as the last episode I kind of mentioned poverty and whatnot and and such. But some of you, you may you're listening to this. If you're listening to this, that's a real blessing because you don't realize legit what it takes after it takes to listen to this podcast. You need internet access, need a phone or a computer or something like that. Yeah, and then it actually, yeah. So that basically in itself is a blessing. Now you have to really say, "Oh, damn, I'm really privileged to really be listening to this now." But that's not the thing I want to talk about.